When I think about video games that absolutely nail it, FTL is one of the many games that comes to mind. FTL, or Faster Than Light, is a roguelike game developed by Subset Games and was released in 2012. As a player, it ticks every box. The soundtrack varies wildly, sometimes invoking a sense of impending doom and dread, while other times it urges you forward through a bleak and unrelenting galaxy. The visuals, while simple, have a very unique style. Pixel art can sometimes be hard to look at, and sometimes it's overly simple, but FTL finds the perfect balance. Most importantly, though, is the gameplay. As the captain, you're responsible for managing everything from your crew, weapon systems, shields, combat drones, all the way down to individual doors inside your ship. Each sector is randomly generated, and within each sector are unique events, encounters, and consequences. You are given free rein as to how you deal with each encounter as you calculate risk versus reward. Your goal is to reach the 8th sector, where you will encounter a very powerful boss. Despite each playthrough having the same goal, each time it's unique. Your battles, crew, decisions, and your story are unique to each playthrough, which means near infinite replayability. There is one constant, though. You'll either be successful in defeating the rebels, or die trying. After playing this game frequently for the past several years, oftentimes I'll ask myself, just what makes this game so good? You are the captain of a spaceship tasked with delivering an important message to the Admiral of the Federation. The galaxy is plunged into war between the Federation and the rebels, and you hold the key. With such a great responsibility, you must be strong enough to complete your task. You start off with meager offensive and defensive capabilities in the first sector, but with each subsequent battle or event, you grow stronger. Enemies are fairly weak in the first and second sector, but you can get left behind pretty quickly if you make poor decisions in your build. In FTL, the main currency is scrap. Scrap is used to upgrade your ship, purchase new weapons, crew, or entirely new subsystems. You'll spend the entire game managing your scrap, saving it to splurge on a new weapon or subsystem that will define your build. Hoarding your scrap for the entire game is dangerous, as enemies become progressively more difficult and cunning. When you've saved enough scrap and finally come across a shop that has the item you're looking for, it's a pretty amazing feeling. The progression in this game is very satisfying, but it also requires you to be able to adapt to a variety of enemy factions. NG ships, for example, will rely heavily on combat drones. If your shields aren't strong enough to endure the barrage of lasers and missiles, you'll be torn apart. FTL's progression works like this. You can spend scrap to upgrade individual subsystems within your ship, which then in turn makes them more powerful, or you can buy weapons and other augments at a shop. Individual crew members also progress in their skills as you play. For example, a crew member manning the shields will get better at it with each subsequent fight. In a way, there are two routes of progression, the obviously being new, more powerful offensive capabilities, and the subtle yet meaningful skill improvements each crew member gains. In this way, FTL never feels stagnant. You always feel as though you're moving towards something better, regardless of how small that improvement may be. Outside the game, you can earn new ships that completely shake up the way the game is played. These ships can be earned in many different ways, including finding secret sectors during a game, quests, and by defeating the rebel flagship. Having multiple sources of progression in a roguelike is a great feeling because, when you die, you'll have made some sort of progress towards something. Speaking of death, here's a spoiler. In FTL, you'll die. A lot. As you move throughout the sector, the rebel fleet will constantly chase you. There isn't much time to loiter in a sector because, after a number of jumps, the rebel armada will swallow the sector whole. If you make the mistake of letting the fleet catch up to you, you will be punished. The rebel fleet consists of very strong fighters and anti-ship batteries that can smash your hull to bits. Through this constant, looming threat, FTL does a great job giving you motivation to move on. You really feel as though the Federation fleet is desperately waiting for you in the 8th sector, and that each passing second will incur further risk. There's a lot of pressure placed on you knowing that you're the only hope in the galaxy. And, if you're to make it to the 8th sector, you'll need to strategize. You will need to carefully consider each jump, ensuring that you don't get stuck in some corner of the sector as the rebel fleet closes in. In addition to planning your route, you will also need to coordinate your weapons and offensive subsystems. If you have a laser that cannot penetrate a shield but a missile launcher that can, it might be a good idea to use that missile launcher on the enemy shields. If coordinated correctly, you can wreak havoc on an enemy ship and destroy it before they even have a chance to aim at you. This is another thing that FTL does very well. It rewards strategic combat and navigation, but can and will punish you for going in blind. By having this invisible hand reward or punish you, every victory feels well earned. You feel like you've successfully outwitted the enemy and that your own decisions actually matter. It is your choice as to how you fight hostiles, interact with friendly factions, and ultimately how you win. After a few games, you'll begin to understand the gameplay loop. Earn scrap from defeating enemies or completing quests, upgrade your ship, buy weapons, repeat. The system could get old pretty quickly, but FTL avoids that by always throwing something new at you. Each encounter has a sense of individuality because your weapons and subsystems likely will be different from the previous playthrough. Learning how new weapons work and how they synergize with your current loadout is a lot of fun and can get pretty crazy. Personally, I like attaching as many flak cannons to my ship as possible and launching shrapnel towards the enemy. You will learn how to counter certain weapons or subsystems through victory and defeat. The combat may seem simple at first. Aim at a certain room on an enemy ship and fire. Sounds pretty easy. Combat can get pretty complex depending on your loadout, and targeting your weapons on the right systems can make or break a fight. There is also an extensive modding community dedicated to adding fresh content into the game. Some mods act as DLCs, while some update visuals or fix quality of life issues. Even after 400 hours logged, I still feel like there are more secrets for me to uncover. All in all, FTL is a great game for a multitude of different reasons. You are always kept on your feet as each jump feels like a risk. You have no choice but to face certain danger, but it is through facing the overwhelming adversity of the galaxy that makes this game shine. Watching your scythe beam split a ship into a million pieces as the enemy crew scrambles to repair their oxygen subsystems, it's such a rewarding and satisfying feeling. Knowing you've played your cards right and coming out on top makes you feel as though you really are the captain of the ship. The music, visuals, and story make the game an incredible adventure that I strongly suggest you embark on. You won't be disappointed.